our Finance Committee meeting at 6:32 on February 10th. The agenda tonight, just to clarify, I know Alex had some questions. The primary agenda was to review the document that has been sent to us from Gary and Nikki Roebuck and Tom Younger regarding Gary's role as the interim sole select person between now and the special election on April 8th. So the document that got sent out has a cover note from Nikki. The Public Special Text Act. The highlights of the act are on page, I suspect you hopefully have all read that. And then a copy of a letter of support that I guess I would sign as the representing the Finance Committee and send that along through Nikki for her to include in a packet to the legislators. Is that correct, Tom? Gary?
Correct. Yes. So okay. And this came about primarily with the town council. Lauren drafted up the act, and we talked with the Bruce Tarr and Brad Hill online, and they emphasized that they would be much better off getting it through if there was broad support from the town. So we've gone out to the committees and asked them to just send in essentially a note or a letter that say, yeah, we support this. And the whole purpose is to, you know, given the timelines, it's probably going to be retroactive by the time it gets signed, but it will just validate that the actions the town takes from 19 January until 9 April, when we'll have a quorum established on the Board of Selectmen again, that they were valid and approved. Because I think one of the concerns was we want to make sure that there's no after the fact contestant that says, hey, you know, I lost the special election or this didn't go right in my favor, and it was all because there was just one selectman. So I think this is just their purpose to legitimize that the special election, especially and other actions, will have the full force. And we'll have the same sort of statement we'll propose to a town meeting, and once we have the full Board of Selectmen. So we're looking at 3 actions to validate this period. And that's basically it. It's just a add on to go with the state legislator that says, you know, the town's behind this.
Hey, Gary, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hold on, sorry.
Is it better now?
Alex, I can't hear you.
Sorry, 1 second.
Okay.
Any better now?
There you go.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I've been on Zoom all day, so whatever. Gary, can I rephrase what you said, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong?
Right.
It's not so much to legitimize the special election, but to legitimize the actions that are taken on behalf of the town, primarily that relate to you as the sole selectman between now and the special election. That's what we're providing a protection.
Yeah, yeah, protection that the one selectman was valid to do these things from 19 January until 9 April, when we should have a quorum back.
Thanks.
Has everyone had a chance to read the documents? Are there any questions that under the highlights or the language or the actual letter that we'd be sending out? Okay, I think what would be helpful, Catherine T.
Yes.
If I actually read the letter, would that be helpful for the record?
You may. I can put it in as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
you have a copy.
Catherine, you already have a copy, I think,
correct.
right?
You don't have
because
to
it's
read
gone
it,
to all the other committees. So.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of open meeting and folks that may be listening, I don't know if there's other folks, I think it might be helpful to read the actual letter. If I may, hi Susan, if I may do so. We, as the authorized Town of Wenham Finance and Advisory Committee, hereby support the filing and the enactment of the proposed legislation, quote, an act relative to the continuation of town governance in the town of Wenham, end quote. which would follow the sole remaining select board member of a previous 3-member select board, in parentheses, 2 members resigned in January 2021, end of parentheses, to perform specific functions on behalf of the town until a second board member is elected at a special town election in April 2021. This is an unusual situation, and this legislation would allow and authorize the continuation of the town government until a quorum of the select board could happen after the special April 2021 election. And I would insert in that, although it's not in this, April 8th, just so we're clear.
Yes, that's set now, yes.
Okay. So, no other questions, comments? Carrie?
Yeah, I have a question. Can someone explain the potential warrant article? I'm not sure where that fits in the timeline or why it's even necessary if we have the legislation.
So three-prong approach. That special legislation, given the pandemic budget and so forth, the timing on the legislation is questionable.
Oh,
all right.
I see.
So first backup is at annual town meeting, we'll have a similar article that says the town meeting, being the public body, approves everything and validates everything.
Like retroactively.
Retroactively,
Oh,
then.
I got it.
And then when we have the third selectman after the May 6th election, we'll have the full board do the same thing. So we'll have 3 layers of validation.
I think I thought that the special legislation, like the groundwork was laid and that was definitely going to happen in a timely fashion, but the warrant article is in case it doesn't.
Yes, I think we'll probably, given the timelines, we'll probably end up doing all 3.
Okay.
And because
that makes sense.
Obviously, there are 355 other municipalities that get items before the legislature as well. So,
I mean, Carrie, the one thing we are absolutely positive about is the special election date. So
that's right.
We know that we will have a second board member effectively 8:05 p.m. That evening, probably.
Yeah.
And then we're going forward. But right now, basically, Gary and I are meeting on a daily basis, almost 7 days a week. And so far, everything has gone relatively smoothly. There's been nothing that's been basically something that would be maybe questioned or challenged as far as what we've been able to do. But, you know, this on Gary's authority, most of that would be in case of an emergency basis.
Sure.
Something had come up. The work that we're doing right now has been pretty much just background material, nothing that would require a vote of the board at this point, just prepping for the future board and prepping for when we have 2 and eventually 3 members.
And is this being shepherded? I thought I heard someone say governor's office. Is this being shepherded through the governor's office?
The process is it goes to the governor's office and he has to submit it to the legislature on behalf of the municipality.
Okay, thank you.
Although we clearly have been promised support from our local senator and representative to work it through.
Thank you.
I just had two questions. One is, if I heard correctly, we're still going to have 2 members of the board after a special election. Only one person has pulled papers. Is that correct?
No, there is only 1 selectman slot on the special election. And the reason for that is the second one was running out normally this May. So we did not want to have election for 4 weeks. Mr. Wilhelm's term of office goes until 22. So we're electing his for 13 months. Mr. Clemenzi's was running out in May anyhow. So we're waiting until the usual annual election in May to fill his slot. Otherwise, you know, it would run at the special election and 4 weeks later would have to run that same slot again.
I don't have a problem with the letter, but just more of a question of a rule. So you and going forward, you and the new select person select the warrant and select everything that goes on for the town meeting. If you disagree on any kind of approach or 1-1, what then happens if there's only 2 board members?
Well, then clearly, you know, the warrant will be opened and closed, and you know the recommendations, as we do every year, on the particular articles will have to wait until I have the quorum. And as any other year, you know, it could have been 2-1, 0-3, and this year it might be 2-0, 1-1, or 0-2. So, but you know, the recommendations from the Board of Selectmen on each article will occur after the 8 April election.
But doesn't the board also state the warrant, the language, how to break things up in the presentation? So
yes, that's all, because the timeline, that's all going to occur before the special election.
Okay. Right. I got it.
Because we had to have, the election cycle, it was 64 days, but you know, obviously Jackie knows we got to go to print here at the end of March, so they'll all be done prior.
Okay. Thank you for your work, Gary.
And David, even if Select Board Member Wilhelm did not resign and Mr. Clemency resigned, it would probably be, at least in my opinion, highly unlikely that there would have been a special election for Mr. Clemency's seat, because it still would have been April, and it would have been an individual holding that seat for literally the same thing 1 month.
Yeah, that's good. I'm not, maybe tone came off wrong in Zoom. I'm not disagreeing with anything. It's more of a curiosity to prepare if something does happen. So Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Just one other quick comment, if I may. So just on the 5 sections, or really 4 sections of the act, or whatever it's called, I guess like 3 of them one is sort of like a coverage with respect to like conflict of interest, being section 4, to work with the interim TA for matters where there's a conflict or something like that. The first 2 are procedural, it feels like, for purposes of getting these members in place. Board of Selectmen and Town Clerk.
Yes.
To keep things running. The third one, obviously, the potential to settle on behalf of the town, the sexual harassment claim, I think I have no reason to think that it shouldn't be there. I don't know the motivations, if like maybe KP Law was like, hey, this is smart to have here, whatever.
Yes, I think, you know, the thought there was that if a settlement can be reached, then it ought to be done as soon as practical. That from the town's perspective, knowing that essentially the insurance is not going to be a money decision, because the insurance is going to cover that above the deductible, which is fixed. So it's not, you know, from the town's perspective, there may be some peripheral things of, you know, additional training or whatever, but it's from the financial perspective, the price range, if you will, is pretty much handled by the insurance company, and we're already either on the hook or committed to the deductible portion. So any decision I made would not affect the dollar outcome.
Can I ask what I think it was mentioned before, how much is the deductible?
5,000.
5?
Yes.
I only bring up that, Gary, I think you're doing a great job with being very forthcoming, present, and transparent. I would, and if I were in your position, which thankfully I'm not, because you're in a tough spot, I think I would try to do, don't take this the wrong way, but as little as possible, and defer as much of the key decision making to when you have.
Yes, definitely. You know, that's the purpose, and it's only, you know, on that particular segment, we want to cover that possibility, because we would not want to defer a settlement for just because of the circumstances of having the one selectman. And 2, you know, anything major, this legislation, you know, obviously 99% of everything's getting done going forward. So this legislation is more to validate legally what occurs, because it's a very unusual circumstance. And 2, if there is something extraordinary that comes up that would allow me to legally, you know, make the decision to and if you read in deeply there, you know, it's very constrained, you know, it can't, it has to be time sensitive. It has to be health and safety and so forth in there. So, and I accept your advice and plan to go that way. The fewer major decisions I make, the easier it's going to be to just roll it over until we have the quorum established.
That's a good suggestion, Alex. Great position, Gary. Thank you.
All right. So if you want to take a vote, because I think we need a couple of minutes if you want to talk about the 7 o'clock meeting.
Yes. Okay. A motion. I move that the Wenham Finance and Advisory Committee accept the letter of support and act relative to the continuance of town governance in the town of Wenham.
Second the motion.
Second. Any further discussion?
With the change of date, didn't you want to change to put the date in April 8th?
April 8th. Yes, I think Catherine T. got that. Thank you, Susan.
Okay.
Having no other discussion, all those in favor will take a roll call vote for Catherine T. Aye, Jim.
Aye, Susan.
Aye, Alex.
Aye, Carrie.
And David, you got your hand on there. When Susan, you want to do yours one more time?
Yeah.
I'll redo it. Aye, David.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Susan.
The motion carries unanimously. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, just quickly, we have about 10 minutes, a little bit less. The meeting this evening, Gary and I, with the school budget, Hamilton BOS, FinComs, and so on. There was a quick meeting earlier in the week on Monday with Gary and myself, Jackie and Jamie and folks from Hamilton to discuss where we are in our strategies with the schools. I'll cut to the bottom line here, Gary. Is to request from the schools a little bit more savings of approximately 1%, which rounds up to approximately $400,000, of which, if that were passed, it would result in Wenham's reduction, if you will, of approximately $135,000 and approximately $265,000 for Hamilton. Hamilton believes, or not believes, but Hamilton is in the position that 265 would avoid an override. They are very concerned about an override, and we don't want an override either. And you know, we're still at roughly the 650,000 as we speak right now, operating deficit. I know you just put your hand up, Jackie. With us taking a position of not wanting to use our reserve for operational funds, and also wanting to use our reserve for some identified one-time capital, possibly a capital reserve account. And we also had the reduction of our free cash by approximately 150,000, which makes that free cash a little bit more not as robust as it was. Gary?
Yeah, I think that sums it up. You know, clearly everyone's gone through the slide deck that Hamilton is going through tonight that was put out with the school committee slide deck. Has everyone seen that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, Hamilton, you know, they put it straightforward on Monday. They've calculated they need 400 overall, 260 for them to avoid the override. And that's what they're going to push for. I think the school committee, I think in the last couple of days have perhaps gained, I was told 180,000 in additional grant money, which will soften that a little bit. So I think it's quite doable. And if you've gone through the budget, I think we'll need to say thank you for Vinny, because that's clearly more data that we've ever received before from the school committee.
Jackie?
Jim, can I make one clarification of something you summarized, just so that our FinCom are aware? Because our slide deck just went out a few minutes ago. It was a little bit later. So for how we're gonna look at tonight, Wenham's gonna go first quickly, just to talk about where we are in the 22 process, and then Hamilton's gonna speak to their process and kind of sum up our shared thoughts that I know that you guys saw Joe's slides. The one thing I do want to make sure we understand is that, so the free cash number came in from DOR. It has been certified. It's only going to be 826,178. So that's less than we thought it was going to be from what we had from Chris. So it's significantly less. So that's something to consider. And when we look at the current deficit, that's still not including any plug for free cash. So the numbers that we're going to go over tonight with the schools assume no plug of free cash, knowing that like free cash can be used for some of our capital items and some of our other items. So Jamie and I met yesterday and went through all the projects again. So with all the different funding mechanisms of all the capital, you having cut nothing at this point.
That's right.
Deficit is in the market of 950,000 when we look at the numbers today. But that's going to be
how'd that happen?
Susan, can I finish? Sorry. I'm sorry. I have such a short period of time. So that happened because that includes the master plan, which is 125 on its own. And it includes the schools and everything from the departments fully loaded. As we know, when we went over the spreadsheet on January 9th, it didn't have all of the things, and department heads have added some capital since. But the piece that is important is that that's still without any use of free cash. And we also got really positive news from Maya this week that we're going to see a good cost savings on our health insurance. So that's going to look like, so with everything fully loaded and the cost of savings of our health insurance, we're going to not be in as tight of a position as that 950. The other thing that Jamie and I went over yesterday that we're planning to do is for your next meeting, we're going to go through every dollar that's above last year and identify the department, the job title, like what it is, and the program or service, and a description with that dollar amount, and have FinCom, those of you that have been on before, go through and prioritize low, medium, high on all of those things that are above level services and above level funding, so that you can really see where the dollars are drawn out from the different department proposals. Because when we were looking at it in January, it wasn't as inclusive as we thought it was of all the department heads' proposals. So I know it's a big number. I didn't want it to be a shocking number, and it's going to be, but we're working on it. And now we have a break next week between FinCom meetings. So you'll have a little bit of homework of going through those priorities, and you'll see the dollar. And that way you can make determinations of level services versus level funding.
Just personally, I wish that we had had the opportunity to see what Hamilton and the schools are going to see before. I'd prefer not to do it at the same time as them. I don't know why we didn't get this information ahead of time.
There's still, the one thing I will say is, having worked with Hamilton as FinCom chair for a few years, they are welcoming of our participation in their strategy with respect to articles, structuring of funding of schools, and operating budget. Number one, I suspect they have not changed their stance. It sounds like they're inviting participation and sharing componentry there, which is excellent. And that'll continue. And Jim, you'll represent us there. So that's great. I think that there's a lot happening kind of between our meetings with respect to large scale impacts to the budget. And it's like hearing that, like, oh yeah, there's more capital since we last spoke. Like, we can add everything to the list. We can add every ask, but Susan, I say this maybe more for your benefit. We will be making the determination as to every single one of those line items, whether or not we want it in the budget. We'll front load the whole thing for the schools to say, hey, we're $1,950,000 short, but we're not going to be 950 short, because we're not going to buy all our capital stuff. And we probably won't use zero free cash. We'll have a plug at some point. We haven't gotten there yet. So like, historically, we show the schools, this is what we can afford.
Okay.
So yeah, we start at the most conservative position that we have with the current information that we have. Jackie, in your slides, what number are you going to have in your slides for our current operating problems? 950?
Approximately. It's approximately 950. but that's, you know, all of the capital, none of it as a lease, all of it as a one-time push.
Okay.
So that's something where that's a policy decision that we are going to make. And it's been difficult with the weekly meetings to, you know, have enough time. So now we've got a 2-week break before your next meeting. So ahead of that meeting, you'll get the breakdown of every new capital item, every new project, the different funding options, and then you can make your priorities. And that way, when you're together on the 26th, as we've done in years past, you'll see that.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think we need to move over to the other meeting.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
Okay.
Gary.
Thank you, everybody.
Do you mind, Jamie, forwarding us the roll-up of the Excel-based roll-up of everything for the past, like it starts at FY17, I think, so we can just start to track and do some big picture stuff on our side, understanding that obviously there's placeholders for FY20.
That would be gret.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move that this meeting be adjourned at 6:57. All those in a second? Seconds. All those in favor? Aye, Jim.
Hi, Susan. Alex.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi, David.
Okay, that's unanimous, Catherine. We're all going to move to the other meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.